All right, excellent. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to this week's webinar. As Patrick just introduced me, my name is Jimmy and I'm the main developer on our FormsViewer service. And today we're going to be talking about a new way we've been developing for accessing FormsViewer from your SharePoint libraries. So let's jump into it. So as most of you, I'm sure, are aware, InfoPath and InfoPath Form services have been deprecated. We're not sure what the future holds for them. Some of their functionality is already waning, and it might be gone altogether in the near future. So we've been developing a new way to use your forms called FormsViewer, which basically allows you to take your existing InfoPath forms and with a minimal amount of modifications, continue using those forms on the web in your browser, and you can continue using your SharePoint integration from them. When you start using your forms in FormsViewer, the question then becomes, well, my users are all in SharePoint. How are they going to access my forms from there? SharePoint doesn't know what FormsViewer is, so we need a way for them to, as easily as possible, open up the forms, open up new forms and existing forms from their SharePoint libraries. So what we've had until now is something we've called FV-links. It's basically a JavaScript file that you modify a little bit and upload to your site assets or a library like that, and then you change a couple settings in your library views, and that's what sets up the libraries to open up in FormsViewer. It overrides the links in the name columns. It overrides the new button so that it opens up the forms in FormsViewer. The bad thing about JS-Link is that Microsoft has decided they don't want it anymore. JS-Link as well is deprecated, and it only works in classic mode when you're viewing the library in classic mode. If you're viewing it in modern UI, the JS-Link doesn't run, doesn't have any effect. And on team sites, they've decided that they don't want the JS-Link feature anywhere at all. So you can't even set up the JS-Link properties if you're working in a team site. So we've been working on a way to allow people to continue to open their forms from their libraries. And that's what I'm going to be presenting at this webinar. One other downside of the FV-links, as I'm sure some of you have seen, is that it was hard to configure. You had to open up a file in your text editor, change some settings in it, make sure you get the URLs right. So we wanted to make sure that the next iteration of this functionality was a lot less painful. So what we've come up with is what I've been calling FormsViewer extensions. It's basically an app that you upload to your SharePoint environment, and it allows you to open forms from your modern UI libraries. It's built using SharePoint's new SharePoint framework extensions libraries, which is their newest and greatest development model for little SharePoint add-ins. We've made it easy to configure. We provide a config tool for adding the settings to your library. No more editing files or anything like that. So we're going to have a look at that very soon. Before I get to that, I do want to point out a couple of limitations that we have at this time. It doesn't currently work in SharePoint on premises. The reason that is that the framework extensions feature is not yet included in the on-premises version of SharePoint. So it's literally impossible to use that feature as of right now. It won't work in classic views. It only works in the modern views. So if you're planning to use classic views for the time being, I'd suggest using both the FV-links and this new thing as well at the same time. You can install them both and have one work in modern view and one work in the classic view. One more thing we can't do is override the library's new button. Previously we used some some JavaScript to sort of hijack the new button in the library views, but that's not the right way to go about things in this new model. So what we're doing is we're providing a button that you're going to see very soon, which allows you to open up new forms in FormsViewer. So with that all out of the way, let's have a look at this new feature. So here I am in my SharePoint environment. I'm going to go over to my app catalog. Most of you, if you've installed FormsViewer before, you're familiar with the app catalog and how to get to it. We're going to provide some documentation with this tool to tell you how to get there, just in case you're not sure. In my case, I'm using a special app catalog that's just for my site collection because we're developing this tool. We want to have it installed, different versions of it installed in different places. But you guys will just use your usual global app catalog for uploading this this tool. So all we need to do to get it there is we've got this file here, FormsViewer extensions.sppkg, and I'm going to drag that over. All right, it's going to ask me if I trust it. It's going to tell us what the app is capable of doing. Having it running in your browser allows it to sort of run things on your behalf. So you just want to click deploy here to say you're okay with using this app. Okay, and there we go. It's uploaded to the app catalog. Now the next thing we want to do is install it here in the site. So we're here in my site that I've set up for this webinar, and I just want to go into site contents, or actually I don't have to go to site contents. I can go to add an app. And here it is right here, first item on the list, but if I want to search for it, I can search for FormsViewer extensions, and it's right there. One click, and it's installing. And this process usually takes about a minute or two. So while we're waiting for that, I'll take any questions that anybody has at this point.
It's great to see everyone here today. Jimmy, let me ask you a question. I'm trying to think of one to ask, but I guess the question would be, what's a good question to ask you? Let's see. If are we going to put this stuff in the SharePoint App Store? When are we going to get this stuff in the SharePoint App Store, I guess?
Well, these extensions are not currently. It's not possible to add this kind of app to a SharePoint App Store because they're using this particular app model. We do plan to get the main FormsViewer app in the SharePoint App Store as soon as possible. We'll probably try and get that process going within the next 2 weeks or so.
Where can they find FormsViewer app in the meantime, and also this extensions framework? I mean, there's going to be a webinar package to download, but for those people who are watching this video after the fact, and for those who are currently online, where should they go to download this later?
Let me show you. I can go to InfoPath dev, pathdev.com. Go to downloads, and here we go over to FormsViewer installation and setup. Here we can get the FormsViewer application. This is the main app file for FormsViewer, and I'm going to be uploading this this new app to the same place as well. So you just go to infopathdevcom, click on downloads, and then it's here under the FormsViewer area of the downloads section.
And for those people using Classic, the first link there to configure links is the current download for the Classic UI, right?
Yes, that's right. Configure links in a library to open in FormsViewer is the FV links that I was talking about a few minutes ago.
Cool.
All right, so let's see how this is going. Refresh the page. Okay, we're all set. So the app is installed, and the next thing I want to do is add a page where I can add the config tool. So I'm just going to go this gear up here, add a page. And we're going to call this FormsViewer extension config. And the config tool is actually a client-side web part. So we're going to add that to this page here. Let's see, did I scroll past it? There it is. Okay. All right, so we can see it's added to the page. It's got some nice styling colors. And this next step is optional, but I do recommend it. You can open up the web parts properties, and it's got this box here for the FormsViewer URL. So I want to get my FormsViewer URL. So I'm just going to go to Site Contents and FormsViewer. And that's going to open up FormsViewer, and I just paste that URL over here. Okay, so I've got that setting in place. Just going to hit publish, and this will add this page to my site. So now that it's published, I can just start using it. If I need to access it in the future, I can just go to Pages here in the sidebar, and it's listed right here, FormsViewer extension config. So there we go. All right, so now here in the config tool, we've got a list of the libraries in this site. We've got the two default libraries, documents, and site assets, and we've got our expense reports library that I added a couple hours ago. So when I select that, it's going to list, it's going to query the fields in that library and find all the name columns. Libraries usually have 3 name columns. It's kind of hard to tell them apart, but usually the one that's shown by default is this third one, name link to document with edit menu. Typically, we recommend just picking all 3, and we're gonna override all 3 of the name columns in that library. The FormsViewer URL here is already populated for me because I specified it in the web part settings. But if I needed to, if I hadn't set it there, I could put it here now, or I can change it if I need a different FormsViewer URL for whatever reason. And my template name is going to be the name of my template here in FormsViewer. So that is expense report, I believe. Yep. Okay, expense report. All right, that's it. So we got our library, our fields, FormsViewer URL, and the template name. And we're going to apply changes, and they are applied. And we've got a little log down here we can check just to see what it's doing, see if it's outputting any errors or anything. We can find them here, but usually you don't need to look at that log there. All right, so that's it. That's all we need to do to configure the library. So now that we've done that, I want to go back to my site contents and expense reports. And here we are. Okay, so we can see that this the settings have taken effect because we've got this FormsViewer icon here in the control bar. That's going to allow us to open up new documents in FormsViewer, new expense reports, and this should look pretty normal. But what will actually happen if we click that is that it will open up in FormsViewer. The one thing I want to do before I show that off, this is a little bit of a gotcha, but if the library is configured to open forms in the browser, it'll try to open them in both IPFS and FormsViewer, and we don't want that. So we're just going to change this setting to say open in the client application, and that should prevent that. Okay, so back to our library. Let's try out this this button at the top first. Open up a new document. Okay, so that button opens up my trusty expense report form. Not going to fill in much here. Just date. Let's say I'm gonna fill in the expenses later. I'm just gonna fill in those couple fields and hit submit. All right, and we're back to our library, and we can see that new document is added here. So we've just round tripped into FormsViewer and back to the library and submitted a document. So now that we've got our document, I'm gonna go ahead and click on it. Oh, I have not seen that yet. Seen that before. Okay, that's a bit troublesome. Let's just say yes. All right, so it seems there are a couple of kinks we need to work out here. I hadn't run into this problem in my testing today, but let's just see if we can get it working by enabling the IPFS.
You know, it's a demo when there's a kink, right?
Yep. All right, so let's intentionally put it to open in the browser. I did actually discover a bug yesterday in the control that we're using to render these names. They are supposed to allow us to just override their behavior, but it seems that even if we override them, they okay. So it seems that these links just aren't doing what they're supposed to. So let's go back to our config tool and let's try saving these changes again. Okay, I think I might know what happened. It seems that the column customizer isn't running when I'm redirected back to the library after adding a document. It seems to be that's what happens. So let's change this setting back. All right. Sorry everybody for this hiccup, but I think we're good now. All right. So here we go. Just gonna click that. Okay. Here we go. Into FormsViewer, and there is that document that I just submitted. So there we have it. Still some little glitches to work out. The people who developed this this feature we're using for overriding the links, they're aware of the issue that I reported a little while back. So hopefully they're going to be improving the functionality here as well. But we are also going to work on it to the extent we can from our end and get it going as nicely as possible. And that's the feature.
So the main benefit, just to recap, the main benefit is that for those in Office 365 today who are using modern UI with their forms, they can now open the forms with FormsViewer, whereas before we could only do it when they're in classic mode. Is that right, Jimmy?
That's right. Now you can open up forms from this modern UI.
And what about the Teams sites? Is that also, can they put links in their team sites to open it, or how does that work?
Yeah, this feature works in their team sites. I'm actually doing this demo from a team site.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Do you want to switch to the slide deck? And I just want to do a quick summary for those still on the call with us. Thank you for your patience. We're going to make this package available to you. We'll send it out to you after the webinar later today. And I want to just talk about Power Apps and FormsViewer for a moment. A lot of really exciting news with Power Apps lately, and we're really excited. We're doing development with Power Apps. But you know, some of these forms that you already have, moving them to Power Apps is not trivial. So specifically, the number one SharePoint app today that's downloaded from the SharePoint App Store is a CRM app by Skylight. And David Chenault was at the conference, the BizApps conference in Seattle last week with Microsoft presenting. He developed this Power App, which is very popular, and it took him a lot of time to do it, about 1,500 hours. And it's a relatively complex Power App. If you've got a complex form or you've got existing data, moving that, lifting and shifting to Power Apps may take time. It will take time, significant time. It's not going to be a 20 to 40 hour effort. It's probably going to be more like a minimum of several hundred hours of effort. So the benefit of FormsViewer, and if we switch to the next slide, Jimmy, appreciate that. The main benefit of FormsViewer is that it's not a lift and a shift, it's an extend in place, and we give you these new features for mobile support, for responsive UI, for connections to web services that we couldn't connect to before, and a whole host of other commands via our QRules extensions, which are built in to FormsViewer. But most importantly, you get us. So we've been working in this field for 15 years now. We support you. So we support your forms, your existing investment, and we're there when you need us. And that's it. Let's switch to the next slide and tell everyone what we're doing next week. We're going to be coming back to actually questions. If you have questions, please launch those questions. If you look at the bottom of this slide, we are going to go back to our Authorize, Activate, and Authenticate webinar from 2 weeks ago. We're going to do part 2. So we will show again probably from first principles how to create an application that uses your SMS text messaging and Twilio integration to validate people in the field if they don't have a login. So I hope you can join us next week for that. And if you have any questions, now's a great time to ask. I want to thank Jimmy. Rich, it's a great webinar. And it's actually, I kind of think the kink was, I don't think it was planned, but so it's always nice to have a little reminder that it is live when you're doing the demo. Jimmy is here to help you with the app if you need any help installing it, and obviously we've got other staff as well. So please do let us know if you need to get the app installed. It's really easy. And with that, I guess just want to say thank you again for being here. We'll get the webinar uploaded to YouTube and send you the package with the information, the documentation, and the app that you can install. Thank you very much. We have a question from Matt. Oh, Matt's just saying thanks. Hey, Matt, it's great to see you on the call. Thanks for being a FormsViewer user. And I guess that's it, Jimmy.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.